It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. You can email us as well at randykabc@gmail.com and give us a follow wherever you get podcasts by searching for the KABC News Blitz on Apple Podcasts or wherever. Hit subscribe. We're going to go right now to a press conference getting right underway from fire officials in the Santa Clarita Valley. We're going to figure out what's going on with the Hughes fire, the one that closed the 5 freeway up at Castaic Lake. It went from 50 acres to 1,500 to 3,000 to 5,000 to 8,000 acres, all in just the last few hours. But they are working their tails off to make sure this thing gets contained. Let's find out what's going on. And huge shout out to whoever's organizing these press conferences, because who's speaking first? The fire chief. Here is LA County Fire Chief Anthony Maroney.
So good evening. On behalf of Board Chair and 5th District Supervisor Catherine Barger, we're holding a press conference to give important information to the community of Santa Clarita.
We did not need a shout out for Barger. She is doing fine, but we don't need the shout out.
And the Castaic area. I am Anthony Maroney, Chief of the Los Angeles County Fire Department. The Hughes fire is now estimated to be over 9,400 acres with 0% containment, with no structures reported damaged or destroyed.
Okay, that's pretty incredible. For as explosive as this fire has been, nothing has burned down. The firefighters are making sure this thing goes where it needs to be. That is great. I mean, if you've seen some of the footage, it's just plane after plane after plane after plane to knock this thing down before the winds get even worse tonight.
We have over 4,000 firefighting personnel assigned to the incident, and we had a very robust ground and air response to the incident that you see behind me. The LA County Fire Department is in unified command with the Angeles National Forest, and we are getting assistance from our state partners at CAL FIRE. I wanted to give a weather update because the weather is what's predominantly driving this fire and its spread right now. The National Weather Service has extended the red flag warning through 10 a.m. on Friday for most of Los Angeles.
So it's going to be all week of this. It never ends.
And Ventura counties. Light to moderate Santa Ana winds will continue tonight and into Thursday. The situation remains dynamic, and the fire remains a difficult fire to contain, although we are getting the upper hand. I would now like to invite up Los Angeles County Sheriff Robert Luna to give an update on evacuations and the closure of the I-5. Thank you.
All right, we're going to get Luna up here now because, over 15,000 people evacuated, which as big as this fire is, it is not in a large population zone, but there are evacuation warnings going all the way out to Ventura County on one side, going out to the Antelope Valley on another side. So I think they're being very cautious because of what happened 2 weeks ago. But let's hear what's happening from Mr. Robert Luna.
Good evening to everybody, and thank you, Chief Maroney. So for us, obviously in unified command with our partners at the fire department from the very beginning of this fire incident. And right now, the numbers that I have is that we have approximately 31,000 people who are affected by our evacuation orders. Another 23,000 that are impacted by evacuation warnings.
Just when we thought we were getting out of this and we were getting a real handle on the big fires in the Palisades and Altadena, and the rain was coming in and we're all freaking out about the rain, here's yet another massive fire breaking out and 30,000 people under evacuation order, 20,000 people under evacuation warning.
Along with the work that our deputies have been doing, and you've seen them going from neighborhood to neighborhood, making sure that we are protecting the neighborhoods to make sure nobody gets hurt, traffic ingress and egress. And also, unfortunately, when we talk about fires, our staff knows that immediately they start what we call looter suppression, just to make sure that no one's coming into the area.
Boy, is this just an exclusively LA thing? The fact that we're in the beginning of yet another fire, and within the first minute of Robert Luna speaking, we got to talk about the looters, because that's what goes on. You send out these evacuation alerts, and 99% of people in the evacuation zone, they understand what they need to do, they get ready to go, and they go. But there's that 1%, the jackasses among us that either used to be in prison or on the way to prison soon, decide, I'm going to start breaking into everybody's houses.
To take advantage.
I got my firefighter costume right here.
When people are evacuating their homes. So I want to make sure people know that if you leave your homes, there will be additional deputies working out there in the neighborhoods to make sure your homes are safe. In regards to staffing, we are staffing up. You hear sirens in the distance. They're not only fire apparatus, but you see deputies coming in from different parts of the county. You see our incident management team over my left shoulder setting up with the big trailers that will...
They've done these pressers so many times, they become pros at it.
Assume responsibility for this incident from the Sheriff's Department perspective. And again, in unified command with all of our partners. We have what I estimate well over 400 personnel total regarding this incident.
So just on this one fire, the fire that broke out this early afternoon, 4,000 firefighters are on it trying to put it out, including all the air support, and 400 police officers with the Sheriff's Department. 400 deputies are making sure people are evacuated, people are notified of the evacuations, and the looters are getting their skulls cracked.
Managing other incidences around the county of Los Angeles. I do want to bring your attention to the fact that during this incident, one of the areas that initially was an evacuation warning that did turn into an evacuation order was our Pitches Detention Center, which is not too far from here.
Uh-oh. I didn't think about this. Yeah, there's a jail up there.
The Pitches Detention Center has actually 3 different facilities. One of the facilities was evacuated. In discussing this with our partners from the fire department who are experts in this area, they recommended and we agreed that the one facility, PD South, would be evacuated. That had approximately 476 inmates. We moved those inmates to another facility on the campus. That must have been a fun bus ride. 2 campuses are structured much better than the one that we evacuated from. But total on the entire campus, we have approximately 4,500 inmates, a little over that. We do have a plan in place in case the fire conditions, our fire partners would advise if it gets worse, whether it's wind, whatever that may be.
Boy, think about the logistics that have to go into potentially thinking about evacuating 4,500 prisoners. That is wild. Whoa.
A plan in place to evacuate the rest of the inmates on the entire facility if we absolutely had to. Other than that, it's a newer incident and it's evolving. It's going to change. We're ready for just about anything, which, by the way, includes being prepared for any other incident that would break, God forbid, anywhere in the county of Los Angeles. Yeah,
because the wind isn't stopping and the wind isn't centralized to just the northern part of Santa Clarita. Any one of these things could keep popping up. I feel like everybody is on edge right now. And the fact that all of these road closures are leading to even more traffic, it's starting to drive people over that edge. I got to tell you what I saw driving home in my hour-and-a-half commute to go 17 miles. A truck got into the lane that a small sedan was in. He didn't really cut him off, but he got close. The man in the sedan had it, was pissed off, and he honked. And you know what? That has happened to all of us. We've all lost control, and we've all needed to vent by hitting that honking horn, maybe for 2 or even 3 seconds, because you thought you got cut off. He kept honking the horn at this truck over and over and over and over and over again. I feel like I heard him honk 100 times because we were moving about 2 miles an hour and I was in the lane next to this guy. I was scared to death the entire time. At some point, that honking is going to reach a breaking point in the guy in the truck, and he's either going to do one of few things. He's either going to slam on the brakes so that guy rear ends him, or he's going to get out of the truck because we're barely moving, and there's going to be a fight. And then there's going to be mayhem because people are on edge right now.
I want to report that the 5 freeway has been closed, but I'm told that after this press conference, for a variety of reasons, we will reopen the freeway.
Okay, that's big news. The 5 freeway is no longer closed. That has been contributing to the god-awful, hellish traffic that is out there. It is bad. And traffic is always bad here, but it is especially bad when you have one of the main arteries closed because of fire. And we've got Topanga Canyon closed. We've got PCH closed. And we had part of the 5 freeway going to the Grapevine closed. That's not good. There's only a few ways out of here.
So that people can go back and forth. Again, I do want to reiterate that if you do not live in this area and you're following the smoke, you want to go see what the firefighters are doing, turn on the television set.
Are there fire chasers out there? Because that's not cool. Like the jackass that flew the drone into the super scooper at the Palisades fire? Stop it.
Do not drive into these areas. You are impacting the
How about the news crews?
Ingress and egress of emergency vehicles. We don't need more traffic. We want less traffic. We don't want you walking around in the impacted areas.
You know what? I'm so glad you said that, Robert Luna. We don't want more traffic. We want less traffic in case people need to evacuate. We need to have that mindset all the time, shouldn't we? Because in an emergency, we saw what happened in the Palisades on Sunset Boulevard. If there's no way to get out, people abandon their cars and then it gets worse. So maybe we need to start thinking with an emergency focus on fixing the traffic solutions. Another topic for another day, but something to keep in mind. And yes, me having to drive for 90 minutes this afternoon, only having 15 and a half minutes to show prep and eat my lunch has been a little bit of a mood.
To impact the community members who live here. And with that, I'm going to introduce Chief Robert Garcia from the U.S. Forest Service.
All right, let's hear what the forest guy has to say, and then we'll probably get out of this because I don't think there. You notice that it's all the pros here. It's giving you the information, and we're not thanking each other for our leadership because we've had enough of this. And most of the elected officials have realized that they don't look good at these press conferences. Some of them do. I think Catherine Barger's been doing a pretty good job. I think Tracy Park's been doing a pretty good job. Lindsay Horvath bloviates too much. And Karen Bass has been a mess. Now, she wouldn't be a part of this because this is Santa Clarita Valley, which is not LA City, it's LA County. But boy, has she had a rough week. And deservedly so.
Good evening. Just want to first say thank you to Sheriff Luna and Fire Chief Maroney and Director Joe Tyler for the partnership.
Let's get to the information. We can thank each other later.
This incident started out in the early part of the day, as Chief Maroney indicated, and it is in a mutual threat zone. So Los Angeles County Fire Department and the Angeles National Forest entered into unified command.
I was just driving through this area on Saturday morning. We drove up what we like to call the ugly way to get to Paso and then took 101 to Carmel. But yeah, I was just up here
right away. And I also want to say how extremely proud I am of the way our responders moved into this area and established command and really established some incident objectives working together. The conditions that we're under aren't as severe as what we've been facing over the last week or two. But what you saw today is indicative of the conditions that we're in terms of the vegetation. So although we're not under...
So when do we work on clearing that? Well, I guess the fire's going to do that.
Particularly dangerous situation in terms of the wind. Our wildland fire condition is critical. Absent wind, the fire is going to move through the vegetation like you saw today with the slope and chasing fuel. very dangerous conditions as to what led to the U.S. Forest Service closing all of the Angeles National Forest, and this is exactly an example why.
I want to see the developer that comes in and says, you know what the answer is to these wildfires? We got to start developing and mowing down all these mountains, putting up big old shopping centers. That'll do it.
The other thing I want to offer in terms of resources, I hope that all the citizens here in the area are proud of the pre-positioning and the robust response. This area always sees a robust response in the mutual threat zone. But
this is an area that catches on fire quite a lot. If you have driven north on the 5 freeway and go through the Grapevine, maybe you're going up to Gorman, maybe you're going up to Paso Robles, maybe you're going up to Bakersfield. Some people do it. I have seen those hills scorched black many, 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 many times.
Our incidents between the Eaton, the Palisades, our local mobilization centers, our pre-position resources put us in a position for multiple waves of surge resources, both engine crews on the ground, hand crews, bulldozers, and aircraft. And so
we're not getting caught flat-footed a third time. I mean, really, it's a second time because Eaton and Palisades happen at nearly the same time, but can't have that happen again, especially with who's coming to town on Friday.
So the response you see is a result of the local cooperation and the local pre-planning in the geographic area, not only within the LA area, but also with our partners in the state of California to ensure that we are prepared for what we're now facing. With that, I'm going to turn over the mic to the director of CAL FIRE from Sacramento, Director Joe Tyler.
Okay, maybe we'll hear about some of the aerial support here because that has been wild. And one of the things it was so windy the first night of the Palisades and Eaton fires, they couldn't fly. There was a ground stop at Burbank Airport, and that definitely led to some of the problems. Now, there's, of course, the fact that the hydrants didn't have water, the lack of the reservoirs, the weird things that are going on with the evacuation notices in the Altadena area where half the neighborhood didn't get a notice until 8 hours later. All right, here's the CAL FIRE guy.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Tyler. I'm the Director and Fire Chief of CAL FIRE. Normally, my office is located in Sacramento, but I have found the need over the last 2 weeks to spend my time here in the greater Los Angeles area. We have been impacted significantly over the last 2 weeks, as we all know, related to the Palisades fire, the Eaton fire, the Hearst fire, the Lydia fire. And as we can,
you could actually go on way longer because there's more than that. There's the ones that were a little smaller, but they knocked down quick. They're the ones that are going on in San Diego right now, the ones going on in Riverside right now. It's a rough January, guys.
Continue through these weather conditions. We recognize that it's not over yet. We recognize that we still have a couple of days to go. So the state of California brings its full force of the women and men of CAL FIRE, supporting the Los Angeles County Fire Department, our local fire agencies, the Angeles National Forest and the Forest Service abroad, as well as our law enforcement partners who are doing so much to respond to all of these emergencies together. Cal OES has utilized funds to bring together pre-positioned resources across Southern California. And
so what we're going to have to do, this is going to be a fact of life if we're all going to choose to keep living in this desert. We're going to need to have all the spots that are risky and pre-position those areas. You know what? You know who should pay for that? The insurance companies, because they'll be less likely to have losses. You know, there actually is an insurance company that was privately contracting with a private firefighting company in Montana to try to protect some of the homes in the Palisades area because that's cheaper than paying out that fire.
California National Guard has located aircraft, both rotor wing helicopters and fixed wings, mobile or modular MAFS units to be able to supplement the air tankers that we have here available locally. This fire had a robust response today. And as you can see behind us, the responders are doing great work to try to contain this fire.
So far, no structures. We are at 9,400 acres, and we're going to keep an eye on this thing. But They are putting a massive response on this fire because the last thing we need is another one of these to get out of control. 800-222-KABC is the phone number, 1-800-222-5222. I'll skim the rest of the presser. If there's anything else interesting, I'll bring it to you. Otherwise, we'll move on. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We just played you part of the press conference from LA County Fire and the Sheriff's Department as we discussed the Hughes fire up in the Lake Castaic area. 31,000 people under evacuation orders, 25,000 under evacuation warnings, 9,400 acres burned, but 0 structures burned, 0 structures destroyed at this point. And they've got 4,000 firefighters on it and 400 sheriff's deputies making sure there's no looting. We'll get to the question and answer portion of this press conference next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 going and talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Take your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com and give us a follow wherever you get your podcasts by searching for the KABC News Blitz and hitting subscribe. We are covering the Hughes fire up in Lake Castaic in the Santa Clarita Valley, my hometown. 31,000 people under evacuation orders, 25,000 under an evacuation warning, 9,400 acres, 0% containment, but they've got 4,000 firefighters on this. They have not lost a single structure, and they got 400 sheriff's deputies making sure that people are evacuated, people are safe, and the looters aren't looting. So they're really working overtime on this one. Let's go back to the press conference because they've got a Q&A, and let's see if there's anything interesting.
Plan for the night and...
Did they mic the reporters? This is a dream come true. They have really taken all of our advice since the beginning, where you remember the first few press conferences, it was all the local electeds talking about their leadership. Then they'd get to the fire chief. Then they'd get to the sheriff. Then they'd take questions, and they weren't mic'd. This time we started with the fire chief. We went to the sheriff. We went to the forest guy, to CAL FIRE. They had a little thing from the mayor of Santa Clarita. And now it's Q&A time.
We'll provide Spanish interviews as well. First question.
Thank you. What's the plan for the night and into the morning?
Chief Marnie? Sure.
What is the plan for fighting this thing overnight? Because the winds are about to get worse up there.
So we've already developed the day and the night plan with our unified partners. We are going to be on scene all night long.
I bet he wishes he had 4,000 firefighters to direct at every single one of these all the time.
Gaining more perimeter control.
And we got to look at all our fire budgets in the wake of this thing in every single department and CAL FIRE, because we could double the size of all these forces and it would still be so much cheaper than letting the Palisades burn down.
Making sure that we can put out the hot spots and then have enough resources in staging that if we do have a flare-up, we can move those resources to the fire line. So we already have a plan for tonight, and we're making orders for tomorrow.
Good question.
Can you talk more about those plans for the night, like specifics?
Regarding number of resources or job assignments.
Tell us how many planes.
Yes.
We're going to keep the 4,000 firefighters assigned to the incident. We're going to increase our perimeter control, and we're going to extinguish those hot spots. So those would be the tasks. Yeah.
Sure, Luna.
All right, Luna's getting a question.
Describe the decision-making to first close the I-5 and now reopen. What changed that allowed you to reopen?
Do you ever play the press conference game where you're trying to guess which reporter that is from which station? I think that's Gina Silver from Fox 11.
That particular byway.
So working with our partners at the California Highway Patrol, we needed to
I'll give them a pass for saying California. It's a very stressful situation.
have better ingress and egress for emergency vehicles coming through the 5 freeway corridor.
Something else we should always be thinking about. Shouldn't we be working on solving our traffic nightmares to make sure that emergency vehicles can get through anywhere at any time? Just something to think about. I had a lot of time today to think about traffic.
I believe that we've gotten a lot of the equipment that we need here for the rest of the evening. Obviously, that could change, that could be modified. So we want to give the 5 back to our community so they can get through here as safely and as efficiently as they possibly can.
And is there anything on the way of Interstate 5 that puts those drivers at risk at all, or are you concerned at all about what the traffic will look like?
It'll be a little smoky.
Always concerned about hazards coming in and out, north and south. As far as I know now, we don't see any hazards, but the winds are what they are. I'm not a fire expert, but we listen to our fire experts, and if the winds shift, fire behavior does whatever it does, and if at any time we believe that our community may be in peril because of that wind or fire behavior, we'll close it again. I say we'll close it again. It's our partners at the California Highway Patrol who usually do that, and they do an excellent job at that.
Yes, you start seeing them weave back and forth with the siren going around, and then they do the spin move, and now they're facing you, and you know you're not going anywhere for a real long time.
Amanda Starantino, KCAL. Chief.
Okay, now we're starting to self-identify.
Maroney, I have 2 questions. A lot of people are on edge after the last couple of weeks and what we've seen happen in Altadena and the Palisades. How does this fire here, the Hughes fire, compare to what we've seen the last couple of weeks?
Well, I think that we've all been on edge over the last 16 days, and we've had a number of
It's been 16 days of this. This has felt like the longest January ever. I mean, luckily we had that nice little 3-day weekend, and nothing too crazy happened then. But, oh boy, 2025 is off to a rough start.
Numerous fires start throughout Los Angeles County. The response to this fire between the Angeles National Forest and the LA County resources, in addition to the state resources that were pre-deployed, we had 2 strike teams in the Santa Clarita area. We were able to amass a lot of fire resources early on to change what this fire looks like. Just 3 or 4 hours ago, the smoke was laying across the 5 freeway. That's what necessitated its shutdown, because there could have been accidents, but also the ability to fight the fire from the air. The winds were strong, but they were not those 70, 80, 90-mile-an-hour winds that we experienced on Tuesday the 7th. We had a very robust, like Director Tyler spoke, a robust helicopter and fixed-wing retardant response to this incident. We were able to put in...
It was wild. I saw some of this footage live when I was doing the John Phillips show. You saw plane after plane after plane after plane, one after another, dropping. These are the kind of resources we need all the time.
Tens of thousands of gallons of retardant.
I mean, we might have to be in a situation, I don't know, the feds are going to be here. Maybe we start thinking about when we have these red flag warnings, we're activating, the Guard, the military, people that can also be trained in flying as much aircraft as possible.
The south side of the fire, because the fire was moving to the southwest. It was really the aircraft in addition to all of those ground resources.
Of course, we also have to think, what do we do when we have a situation like January 7th where you couldn't fly the aircraft? Because we cannot just throw our hands up and say, well, this is how it's going to be. We are too smart for that. There has to be a way to solve that.
Allowed us to get the upper.
Maybe when we rebuild the Palisades, we rebuild Altadena, every single house has to have these new fancy roofs that have a sprinkler system, and they blow out retardant and create a foam line around your house. I don't know. Again, might be expensive, cheaper than all this.
Because had you been here a few hours ago, the situation looked much different, and it certainly looked much more threatening.
And Chief Maroney, what are the biggest challenges heading into the night?
Well, into the night, it's going to be making sure that we can rest our crews that have been out there since 10:42 this morning, making sure we can feed them. Firefighting is dirty and dangerous work, but we got to rotate our crews through so we can. There's
some really good eating in Santa Clarita. Let's get some of the really good food out there. Maybe some barbecue. That place that's in the little walking area in Newhall. That would be fun. Old Town Newhall. Get them that smokehouse. That's some good stuff. Jimmy Dean's right there at the 126 next to Magic Mountain. Get every single firefighter there a big old fantastic breakfast burrito, or their pastrami's really good too. I ate a lot of food when I lived there.
Can have, a lot of production and efficiency throughout the night. We're going to take advantage of the lower temperatures and hopefully the reduced wind speeds and the higher humidities to try to get an upper hand.
Okay, thank you. And Sheriff Luna, this is for you. With the 5 reopening, will there still be no access to those neighborhoods now that people will be driving up and down those roads? So getting off at Parker, like Hughes, Hasley, all those evacuation order areas, just because the 5's open, is that still going to be blocked off?
We're assessing that now to make sure, but we'll have a lot of presence. If you are coming into the area, be ready to be challenged, meaning in a polite
You better have a real reason for being there.
way to find out if you actually live here. Be ready to show identification because we want to make sure that we're limiting the people who are coming in and out, and it's people who actually belong here.
Good question so far. Everything about this press conference is the way all of these should go.
I guess this question might be for you, Sheriff, since you guys handle evacuations. I'm Craig with KNX News.
Oh, yeah. Got to get that out there.
When it comes to the idea of evacuation, some people are stubborn. They don't want to go. Have you seen a change in attitude with this fire and now because of the terrible devastation, the death toll, and the fact people are panicked because of the Eaton fire and the Palisades fire?
I haven't received that assessment yet, but I will in the next couple of hours to see how we did on this one. Our deputy sheriffs do amazing work.
This is also an area where this happens a lot. And see, probably people that are ready for this, they got their go bag good to go.
And yes, whether it was the Palisades fire in Malibu Lost Hills for us and the Eaton fire in Altadena, our deputies' jobs are very difficult. There are times where people challenge them. They get evacuation orders and they refuse to leave. They think that they're going to be okay. I know I told the story earlier of a situation in the Altadena area where we were advising, directing people to evacuate, and they refused to. And the deputy felt that they were in such danger that he actually threatened them with arrest. There was an argument between a wife and a husband. Wife saying, hey, we should listen. They listened, they left, and they are now crediting the deputy sheriff for saving their life because that house and neighborhood completely burned down.
That is a wild story. Wow. This has been the most crazy couple of weeks. We'll continue to cover this presser if there's anything else interesting. Otherwise, we will move on as we cover the Hughes fire. The 5 is reopening. The containment is 0%, 9,400 acres, but no structures have been destroyed. They've been keeping the strong fire lines. They're attacking this thing with everything they got, 4,000 firefighters, the aircraft, all of it, and making sure the looters don't loot. They're doing it looks like they are doing as best of a job as they can to knock this thing down. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Hey, do I have something great for you right now? 790 KABC welcomes Lewis Black to the Orpheum Theater on February 1st. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com, but right now, call in number 9 at 1-888-790-5222. Gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing. I listened to the rest of the press conference. There's nothing else you need to know outside of 25,000 in the evacuation warning, 31,000 in the evacuation zone in the Castaic area, 9,400 acres, 0 structures destroyed. The firefighters are on it, over 4,000 of them, plus all the aircraft. When we come back, we'll tell you about a different emergency that happened over the weekend in Northern California that should concern all of us. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. As we're covering the fires in Southern California, there was a fire in Monterey County over the weekend that should concern everybody in the state because it was a fire at a lithium battery plant for the state of California. For more on the state of emergency that came about from that, here's KPIX.
On to Monterey County, supervisors declared a state of emergency after last week's major fire at the Vistra battery plant in Moss Landing. Today's special meeting gave updates on the fire and ongoing response. And Wilson.
See, what's different about a battery plant fire is all the toxic fumes. They had to tell all the neighbors that couldn't evacuate to close all your doors, turn off your air conditioning because those fumes are poisonous.
And Wilson Walker reports while the fire has burned itself out, there's still a lot of questions from both local leaders and neighbors about what is next.
This was in the beginning. This was from my boat.
Josh Contreras looked out of his houseboat to see a ball of fire on the horizon.
I walked up the docks, and then I took more photos of it because you could see the flames freaking probably almost as tall as the towers that stand here.
And now that the fire is out, he, like many others in this area, is thinking about what comes next here.
The fact that we have one of these battery plants so close to homes makes you wonder what the hell. But also, it's one of the scary things, and I say this as a proud owner of an electric car. The fact that when these lithium batteries catch fire, they can't put out the fires for like 24 hours because it requires so much water. We got to do something about that.
And if they do battery packs, they should keep it in more deserted areas.
This technology is ahead of government's ability to regulate it and industry's ability to control it.
That is true. That is very true. And as much as we are rapidly accelerating to this world, think about all the electric cars that are in neighborhoods like the Palisades, for instance, with those batteries, people that have solar with those Tesla battery walls. We got to figure out a way to have a battery that you can put out a fire with. I don't know what's going on, but that is something we have to look into, because as much as we are steering into more of that technology, we've seen the risk of fire here and how that can just accelerate it. So I don't know what we do, but time to start thinking about it. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It's always such a pleasure to do this show, whether we're bringing you breaking news or whether we're talking about food and wine and travel. It's so much fun to do this every day. We'll see you tomorrow at 5 for another News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC.